up, y'all? This is Dregs1. Welcome to another episode of the History of the Bay podcast. Today, it's a very special episode because we are here at Dying Breed. If you already know, if you watch this podcast, you know this is the spot to go for the gear and all the graffiti supplies right here on 24th Street in the Mission District of San Francisco. Shout out to the homie Spooks and Sway in the building. Of course, behind the lens, we got King Said. On the boards, we got DEO, and today we got a very special guest. If you know the comic book world, the cartoon world, even if you're paying attention to tattoos, murals, everything, graffiti, then you know this man. If you don't know his face, you for sure know his work. He is the son of legendary comic illustrator Vaughn Bodē, and he has been carrying on his father's work as well as his own work on many different mediums for decades now, and he plays a big role right here in the Bay Area where he has a lot of roots and connections to. I'm talking about the one and only Mark Bodē. In the building, man. Thank you for doing this today.
Thank you, Dregs.
Yes, and thank you to Spooks and Dying Breed for setting this up.
Absolutely.
And this is perfect timing because you're actually going to be at our event, the History of the Bay Day.
History of the Bay.
Yes,
Day.
sir. Yes, sir.
With Bodē.
Hey.
It's Bodē, actually.
It's Bodē, but
Bodē, it became Bodē when my father was around because he put a long E over the E for Bodē.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever it went into print back then, there was no computers or anything, so people would type it in, and there was only apostrophe. So it went in as a French accent.
Got you.
So Bodē.
Got you.
So that's how it became Bodē with a lot of writers.
But it's Bodē.
Bodē.
In the place to be.
proper.
Yes. And so October 19th, midway at SF, you're going to be in the Dying Breed Graffiti Gallery with King 157 busting out some commissions.
Absolutely. You know, I go to comic book conventions and graffiti events, and I just came from Rotterdam doing an all caps festival there and did a 3-story Cheech Wizard and Poppy on spray can, and and then I even do the cartoon concerts sometime. You know, the readings of the characters like my father used to do, where you have the panels separate from the balloons, and I do the voices like Cheech, do a trick. And Cheech will be like, not now, go jerk off to the Bible, fuzzballs. And that's kind of how that goes. But I don't do it in the States too much because people get offended,
Yeah. But I know you do at the conventions, you're big on commissions.
Yes, absolutely. I do all kinds of, like crossover stuff. If people want like a Bodē Broad Wonder Woman, like I'll do our version, voluptuous version of superheroes, and sometimes I have Cheech as Captain America, like or whatever, like whatever people are into, they come up and they want a Cheech and a Broad, and then I do that, and I've been doing that for years at the comic conventions, and it's also there's a thing right now, the 40 years of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I was one of the original group of artists that did the original comics before they got on TV. So all the original guys are getting together and doing tours, and so I'm part of that too. Man. So if you like Ninja Turtles, I could do a Bodē version.
I'm excited, man. So this is going to be an opportunity for people to get some original artwork from you,
absolutely.
Direct, custom,
or
on the spot.
Or prints, or like I got blotter prints. Like this right here. This right here is blotter. Like it's not dosed, but it's blotter acid paper.
Woo.
And we put the prints and sign them and stuff. Those are the kind of prints I have. I don't have normal stuff.
Look at Sway like I'm ready to take a tab of that right there. Take a tab of the wizard right there.
On the kick, you're tripping out on the kicking the balls. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, I can't wait for the big day. So this is also like perfect time to get you on here and tell some of your story because it's a hell of a story. It's a hell of a career. But it starts with your pops. So Vaughn Bodē, where was he born and raised, and what was his early life
He
like?
was born in Syracuse, New York, upstate New York, in 1941, and he, from a very early age, he started creating worlds. He didn't really get his drawing abilities till he was in his teens, but he had a very abusive childhood, and the kids were out in the street a lot. They even went into foster homes at certain times. So it was a very broken family situation. And so just the abuse and all the uncertainty, he created these worlds to dive into and be safe. So the worse things got, the deeper he went. And he'd create universes and cities and towns and rivers and planets and and then he'd populate them with characters and those were his safe places. But that's and maybe because of the abuse, he was able to go deeper than normal. Like if he had a normal childhood, you might not have a Vaughn Bodē. That's just the reality of that. And it just caused him to go extra deep into his subject, into his worlds. And he was really only worked professionally from 1965 to 75 when he passed away here in San Francisco. He actually lived not too far from here on 20th and Dolores.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and he died there. So this is the neighborhood that my dad was stomping around in back in 73 to 75. But he worked like night and day. Like I just remember him as a kid. He was either working or sleeping. He was always at the drawing board, always. And then now and then we go for a walk and have a little adventure or something, or go to Cheech Wizard's house, or his laboratory, which was just a sewer hole, up on a mountain, in Syracuse, and we go up there and wait for Cheech to come up the hill. But I thought he was real. So what my dad was doing was brainwashing me in a good way to think about the characters as real. And so he showed me the strip, say, "This is what I did with Cheech last night, Mark. Let's go find him." And then we go out with a sandwich and we wait for Cheech to come, and he never came. But what I was imagining was him coming up the hill, because I've seen the pictures, I've seen the cartoons, the comic strips, and then so it was just imagination, from a very young age, and so this allowed me to fall into style as I got my chops together, my drawing chops. I just fell right into the style naturally.
So where did his drawing ability come from? Was he self-taught? Did he have other influences, or was he just doing his own thing?
Well, he was self-taught for the most part. I have some of his clip art, in these books. He would methodically pick through newspapers and pick his favorite strips and put them in little flip books, and then he would imitate them the best he could. It's just like anybody's influence. You got to imitate what came before, and so it wasn't any different for him. He did create a new style out of it, but he had his own influences, like everybody does. And the early influences was, Disney, like Fantasia, the 40s version of Fantasia. My dad actually got Cheech Wizard the hat from the Mickey Mouse,
right?
With
the wizard hat with the stars on
Apprentice.
it. Uh-huh.
And at the after he does all this magic, when the wizard goes to bed, he the wizard makes all the brooms and all the water go away, and then Mickey gives the hat back, and it goes right at the top, just insult to injury, and then that was my dad's eureka moment. He went back to the house, drew that crooked hat, put some legs on it, and just called him Cheech Wizard, and dated it September 26, 1957 at 2 o'clock, at 2:20 in the afternoon. He knew it was a special thing, so he wrote down the time and the date, and yeah. And he was only 15 years old when he did that, and that was in 1957.
Where was some of his first work published?
That was he self-published. You know, like I tell a lot of people out there who are trying to get their artwork out there. You know, you do what my dad did and I did. You put your little books together. You know, photocopy them, go down and, you know, staple them together, sell them for $1, give them away, promote, you know, and, you know, you make a few bucks on the side, and you just, but he had, in 1963, he had Das Kampf, which was a parody of Charles Schulz's Love is Thee, which was a big hit at that time. And Charles Schulz did, you know, the Peanuts, you know, and, my dad did War Is, and was Das Kampf. It was like, war is, you know, saving your comic collection from enemy lines, you know, and the little characters like running like a football player. And this, he did about 100 little sleeves, and he compilated those, and my mother hand numbered them. There was only 100 made. A copy of that now goes for about 10 grand if you find one. They did reprint it. Later on in the late 70s, they've reprinted it, but the original is very rare.
Here's another reminder that Mark Bodē will be in the building for History of the Bay Day, October 19th at the Midway in San Francisco. We got Souls of Mischief, Mob Figures, Kamaya, Du Bois, Drew Down, Be Legit, myself, and many others performing. But also make sure you come through to catch the Graffiti Gallery, where you'll be able to purchase custom art commissions from Mark Bodē and the legendary King 157. The gallery is curated by our friends and longtime sponsors at Dying Breed, and they're going to be bringing some art by some of the Bay's best writers. They'll also have graffiti supplies available to purchase at the event. Tickets are moving fast, so make sure you don't miss out on History of the Bay Day and get your tickets now at the link in the description. Yeah, so like in the 60s is when like this whole underground comic scene really started emerging, right? You had guys like Crumb and other people. Was that part of the scene that your dad got into?
Yeah, it would be Mad Magazine.
Mad, huh?
Harvey Kurtzman. Harvey Kurtzman was head of Mad Magazine at the time, the head artist, I should say. But that was kind of the original, like, subversive comic magazine. And that came out, like, I don't know, late 50s, or maybe early 60s. I'm not exactly sure. But my father was so inspired by that. But he started self-publishing, and by 65, he started compilating his ideas and actually having a printer print it for him. Like, so some of those comic books, like the Cheech Wizard and the Machines comic book, those are very rare, but they're little rectangular books that my dad had printed himself. And never really had anything officially published by a publisher till about 66, 67. He started getting cover gigs, doing If and Galaxy and all these little pulp science fiction magazines. And and meanwhile, his style was starting to develop. He'd simplify, thicken the lines as he went, you know, like and as that went, he refined his style, and it became an American original. And he got to see some great things before he died, but he never got to see the graffiti.
Right.
He died before he saw the first train with a Cheech on it.
Crazy. Yeah, we'll get to that. But he also knew like Crumb too, didn't he?
He did. He worked with Robert for some underground newspapers that they did called Gothic Blimp and the East Village Other. These were magazines or you know, paper more or less giveaways. I mean, they he would do the cover, and then he was the editor of Gothic Blimp for a little bit, and he had Spain, who was also a San Francisco artist, and Prom, and just a plethora of others. Trina Robbins was one of them. She just passed recently. But this is where the underground comic scene flourished. The East Coast was my dad, so he was the East Coast underground scene. West Coast was Zap.
Gotcha.
And Crumb.
Yeah.
So eventually my dad had to join forces, and so he must move west if he was going to get on that wave that the Zap started.
Yeah, because that artwork is it was like pushing the envelope, because there's like one thing that Vaughn Bodē is known for is like the erotic artwork, which was, we were talking a little bit offline about cancel culture, but even back then it was like pushing the envelope in terms of like nudity and sexuality, and of course you got the Bodē Broads. You drawing some thick old women.
Yeah, my dad's I wish I had the piece of paper we were working on, but for some reason when I was 7 years old, he goes, "Son, it's time you learn how to draw tits."
Okay.
And I was like, "Cool." and he starts, and he goes, "Get a pen, okay?" And he teach me how to draw the titties and the nipples, and he says, "If you draw them like this, you'll always make money."
Sex sells, huh?
And I drew them. I drew them very carefully, and if I had those drawings, I'd frame them in gold, because they every word of it was true. But yeah, we're known for doing voluptuous ladies, and the lizards usually represent men, or Cheech. Because men aren't as fun to draw. And that was kind of where my dad was coming from.
Yeah, where what was his influence to like pursue that kind of art, the erotic art?
I think it was just, against the grain, like just pushing against, sexual repression, like he was always a pioneer, like in creators' rights. He was one of the first people, like when Jim Warren was doing Eerie and Creepy magazine and Vampirella. My dad was doing covers with Jeff Jones and Larry Todd, and Basil Gogos was a famous monster painter. But the artists would always hand over their art like it was not valuable, and so the publisher would give them like whatever they got, $50 for a page or $20 for a page, whatever it was, and the artwork was gone. It belonged to the publisher. My father was the first to like hold it back and say, "You like this? Okay, it's mine, but you can publish it," And he was like the first to do that. And Frank Frazetta also did that. So my dad and Frank were like the two in that business right then, holding back. Like Jack Kirby gave all his stuff to, it was all work for hire. And my father would not sign that contract. And that's the truth right there. I still own these characters because my father refused to sign that contract.
Right. So he was all about like pushing the envelope in that way.
Exactly. So he was going in a sexual revolution. It was
Well, he was like experimental with his own sexuality too, right? He was
absolutely
open about that.
He opened up later. He got Guru really turned him out and touched his third eye, and he woke up to the universe, and it had to happen. And when my dad just all of a sudden grew his hair out and started wearing more androgynous kind of clothes and jewelry and makeup and going the full route, androgyny and being both male and female. And it empowered him and made him feel whole. and he was one of the first to be in that too.
To be open about
People, for sure.
I wanted to break down some of the characters that we're talking about and just the mythology around them, this world and this universe. So, like in terms of like the story, the creation, like, so who is Cheech Wizard?
Well, Dad, he always meant Cheech to be him. He is under the hat. It's my father's alter ego. My father was sweet and just charismatic and very friendly and just, I mean, everybody loved him, you know, like, and he loved them back, you know. He just liked that with everybody. And Cheech was the opposite. He's gonna kick your balls, you know, steal your woman, drink all your booze, you know. That was Cheech. And so my dad never touched a drop of alcohol, and Cheech did all that for him. And the lizard was me. Like, I was the little 6-year-old, 7-year-old learning to draw titties.
Like the sidekick, kind of the sidekick.
I was always he told me, that's your character, and I'm Cheech, and you're the lizard. And so eventually I started getting kicked in the balls all the time, which I wasn't so happy with, but I know why. And it was because we used to box when I was a kid, and he'd be on his knees on the bed and I'd be standing, and inevitably, you know, I was getting pummeled. And then I found out one day that if I hit him in the balls as hard as I could, he would drop like a tower into the bed. And I'm gonna get you. And I kept doing it, and eventually he stopped wanting to box. Okay. but he said, I'm gonna get you back. You know, he never, like, you know, get angry with me. Just, I'm going to get you. So he started kicking the lizard in the balls, and forevermore. I'm getting kicked in the balls for the rest of my life.
Got you. So, and he also, like, brought you into drawing and
yeah, he encouraged me a lot. Mm-hmm. He never forced me to do any of it. It was, I wanted to be like him. I wanted to follow him. He was the master and I was the apprentice. I was a true apprentice. I followed him, thought everything he did was cool. And we were best friends, you know. And he died, I was 12 years old. And I just, at that point, I realized it was just me and that I was going to have to get straight and like focus. And so I cut off all my friends my own age, stopped playing, just stopped doing kid stuff. And I just drew like 5 hours a day, like for a little kid to do that.
It's a lot of discipline.
And so by the time I was 15, I was able to color his work for Heavy Metal magazine. That's how I started professionally. And I told my mother, don't tell them I'm doing this, because I knew if they found out my age or that it was me, they might turn me down. And I made sure those pages to Zooks, that was Zooks in Heavy Metal. And if you look at the color job on that, it's pretty good. It still holds up. I look at the pages, I'm like, wow, you pulled it off.
Yeah, and what about...
That's how bad I wanted it. I wanted it bad, I wanted to... And I had the weight of the world on my shoulders, like...
For sure.
Vaughn, I had to, like, keep the characters alive. Vaughn was gone, but Cheech and gang live on, That's pretty much what I was all about,
And
Still about.
What about your mother? Like, what was their relationship like? How did they meet? And she was involved in helping him publish and do his work too, right?
Yeah, she was into that. She's more in love with him, like she wasn't a comics fan, They met in high school sweethearts, and they got married when they were 20 and 21, and had me when they were, 22, 23, So start up quick. But my mother always had the straight job, you know. Like even in my life with my wife Molly, you know, she always had a straight job, you know, with benefits and all that. And that's teamwork, you know. Like it allows me to do the art thing and have my ups and downs, you know. Like sometimes it's feast and sometimes it's famine, but your wife always gets you in between, you know. And that's how we survived all these years, you know, as a team.
Yeah, cool. And I mean, it seems like very much like product of the times, right? The '60s, the hippie,
Yeah, well, my mother
hippie movement.
Yeah, well,
San
after my dad,
Francisco, moving to San Francisco, being part of all that.
yeah, I begged my mother. We were living in Rochester, New York, and after my dad died, and I was like, I begged her to move here, and she listened. It was good. She listened.
Yeah.
My uncle Vincent Bodē, who's also an artist, portrait painter. He lives in Sacramento now, but he lived in Oakland, and we just used him as a home base. You know, we just put everything in my mother's Chevy Malibu, and we just headed west and haven't looked back since. You know.
Did coming to California have a big influence on your dad's work?
Well, yeah, I mean, he was starting to get, you know, in with all the rock and rollers, you know, like you know, all the psychedelic poster guys and, you know, Rick Griffin and Robert Williams and Crumb and all those guys were all out here and all doing the rock and roll thing. And so my dad actually was like looking to go on the road with his cartoon concert with the Grateful Dead at one point. And we went to Mickey Hart's, you know, Mickey Hart's the drummer, and we went to his ranch a few times when I was a kid. And he had a few other bouts. He actually got arrested by David Bowie. And yeah, that's actually in my father's documentary. It's coming out called the Book of Vaughn by Nick Francis, who's the director. We've been working on it for 5 years, but my dad's best friend at the time was George DiCaprio, Leonardo DiCaprio's father, and he was in the comics field. And anyway, my father saw this androgynous human like he was in David. So my dad went to the Ziggy Stardust concert in LA, and David's manager said, David will meet you at his hotel after the show, and for sure they're going to hit it off. You know, the two of them. Like, could you imagine Major Tom or something illustrated by my father? It would have been amazing. And so my dad was going to make this first impression. He gets all dressed up in his religious gear and has his long curly hair, and he has a foldable pyramid, this wood, made of wood, and he put it in the hotel lobby, put the pyramid out, sat under it, and waited, like in a meditation pose. And David was going to come in and go, "Who is that?" You know, like, and my dad was going, "I am Vaughn. I've been waiting for you." And it was going to be like that, you know. But David didn't come in that way. He came in the back way, went up to his room and did a bunch of lines and got really super fucking paranoid and called the cops and was like, "Someone's trying to fucking kill me." And cops come into the lobby. "Who here is waiting for David Bowie?" And the guy under the pyramid is like, "I am." "You're under arrest." And they handcuffed my dad. And he said, "Oh, I almost got to meet him."
Oh, shit.
And they took him down. And he was such a freak. Like, they didn't even, like, I thought we could get a mug shot. We researched it. They didn't take one because he was such a freak. They were like, "Just handcuff him to the table." You know, wait for somebody to pick this guy up. And so they never actually, like, processed my father. So I couldn't get that. I wish I had that.
Yeah, for real. That's crazy.
But that's a true story
that
George told. And George actually bailed my dad out.
Yeah, because when you think of like that rock and roll, like hippie energy of...
It's not all good.
Not all good, for sure. Go to Hate Street right now and you'll see
Not all
the
good
fallout
out there.
from that. Yeah, but I mean, when you think about your dad's art, it fits right into that movement.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, I keep the legacy alive, and it's a pleasure of mine. It's not done for money, obviously, because there's many times the money's not there, but I've made a living at it. I've been pro since I was in my teens.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And it's thanks to these characters and keeping them alive.
Yeah,
Those are my friends. You
For
know,
sure.
if you can keep your friends alive after they have passed,
yeah.
anybody would.
Of
you know,
course.
and that's the same relationship I have with the characters.
I wanted to ask you too about Ralph Bakshi,
Okay.
famous animator.
It's another LA story.
Okay.
Not the best of stories.
Yeah. So he's known for he did the Lord of the Rings animation. He
Right.
Did
He was
Fritz
my
the
dad's
Cat.
agent back in 69 to 70. He was trying to get my dad, my dad's material made into a movie, and he couldn't quite do it. He was having trouble, getting backers. But then he had the idea to get Fritz the Cat, from Crumb, and Crumb didn't want to do it. No way you're touching my character. And so when Crumb was out of town, Bakshi went to his wife, who had a little toddler, and he put $100,000 check on the table. He goes, sign here, and this is yours. And she did. She'd never seen that kind of money in her life. She signed without reading it, and basically signed over Fritz the Cat to Bakshi. And when Crumb came home, he was furious, and he went to court and lost because his wife had power of attorney, and it was signed by her. So Bakshi got that movie like that. And my father said, over my dead body, are we ever going to work together after what you did to Robert? And that's what happened. My dad died in 75, and Bakshi called the day he died. I talked to him on the phone. I was like, my dad died today. And he was like, my condolences to the family. Right to production on Wizards. Took all the characters, a lot of the characters, and changed them a little bit. And
Yeah, so the film Wizards, obviously.
we never got any money.
You
or
got
anything.
Cheech Wizard, and there's a movie
Well,
about
he made
wizards.
it. Yeah, he changed that into Avatar, and then he.
But the main thing
The
was
Bodē Broad and made it into the fairy
yeah.
princess. And
But the main thing was Cobalt 60.
Necron,
right? The
Cobalt
character.
60 became Necron 99 in the movie.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't change it that much.
Yeah, yeah.
But what's bad about that is my mother and I were so destitute that he could have given her a couple grand. She would have signed,
Right. After your dad
he
passed.
and he could have
yeah.
had it legally because we were so so poor. you
Yeah.
know. We were eating just scraps, man. And she was doing everything she could to put food on the table. And Bakshi, comes out with this movie, and we walked out after 10 minutes
Wow.
after seeing it because we just said, yep, we heard about it, and he did it.
Wow.
He ripped us off, okay?
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, it took us about 4 years to get all the artists and the lawyers in place. And the statute of limitations for an animated movie at the time was 4 years. And we had 4 years and 1 month when we
Damn.
filed. They said, sorry, you missed it by a month.
Damn.
So
damn,
they got away with it.
Wow. Wow.
That's that story.
Yeah.
We could talk about something better.
Yeah. Well, I mean.
But that's Hollywood, Hey,
Yeah, yeah. It would have been cool to see those characters I mean, he was a good animator, right? He made some good movies.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Bakshi.
No, I'm not dogging. I mean, he called me a few years ago to apologize. I guess the Blu-ray came out of Wizards, and he called me. He's like, "Mark, this is Ralph Bakshi." And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "I just want to apologize for the influence there. I'm really sorry about that. Your dad and I loved each other." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, okay. Where's the check?" You know,
Yeah.
like I was just thinking, where's the check?
Right.
And he never brought it up. So, but he just wanted me to say, hey, it's okay.
Right.
But I didn't give it to him.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Well, your dad passed in what year was that?
1975.
And so he actually took his own life. Is that
By mistake.
by mistake?
He wouldn't have done it. He wasn't depressed.
Oh,
person.
wow.
It was by mistake. He was an astro traveler. He liked to leave his body, and he was proving to himself and to his fans and followers and his girlfriends and that when you can leave the body and zoom around the universe and then come back and survive to tell about it. And it's those after death experiences, you know, that he was playing with. And he had done it 4 times successfully and saw
Like
the universe.
He died and came back to life.
Yes, yeah. And he was doing it, just cutting the circulation off.
Oh shit.
And then it would loosen when he would lose consciousness. And he considered himself a holy man. His last words to me, like I said, you know, he came out the day he died and he goes, "No phone calls today. I'm doing my God thing, Mark." And I said, "Dad, you look beautiful." And he beamed a smile and he goes, "Thank you, son. You see, I really am a high priest." And that was his last words to me.
Wow.
And he was. He was. And he was just going, you know, like I was actually happy for him. He had set the stage for me to let him go, you know. And so even though I was there, it was difficult and traumatic, but I knew he had gone where he was headed, you know, like he wanted to go.
Right, because you.
He was a universe. He was a baby of the universe. He was a cartoon messiah. He was all that, and he went into the universe back where we all come from.
But you as a child, you discovered him on that day.
No, my
okay.
uncle luckily came looking. My cousin was supposed to come draw with me. He was the same age as me, and he got lost on BART.
Oh shit. Okay.
And so my uncle came racing over to look in the neighborhood, and turned out he got lost and he went back home. So he was supposed to come to 24th Street, and he never made it. He got off on a, you know, probably on West Oakland or something. You know, he was supposed to transfer and he didn't. So he just turned around and went back. But my uncle came out. It was just planned, you know, like it was like my uncle came, and that's when it was Vaughn. It was
Wow.
like he's doing his God thing. What the fuck? You know, like
Yeah.
he knew what that meant. I didn't. But that's so it wasn't me, you know, thank God, you know.
Yeah, because you were only like
Thank God country.
you were like 12 years old.
Yeah. But yeah, so you know, there's been a lot of good stuff that's happened. You know, since, I mean, I've been
Of course, yeah.
very, you know, like my first comic book that I came out with in 85, 84, I think, something like that. Ninja Turtles had just come out, was a huge hit in the comics field. And everybody started jumping on that furry animal, the furry animal book thing, you know, like, you know, Space Beaver and Fish Police and radioactive black belt hamsters. And I came out with Miami Mice. And that actually was like, I was down, you know, at a Carney game, you know, in Oakland or Alameda somewhere, you know, and the one of the giveaways at the, you know, where you throw the ball at the milk crates or whatever, they had a little plate, a glass plate. Who knows what you use that for, but but it's just like a thing they gave away to people at that time, and it said Miami Mice. And my wife went, "That would make a good comic book." And I was like, "Yeah, it would." And then it's a parody, so nobody can really own a parody. But I went home and bashed out the first issue of Miami Mice, and it sold 60,000
Nice.
copies, and the second one sold another 30 or 40,000.
And that came out. That was out on Epic, right?
No,
Oh,
it was
okay.
rip-off press. It was hard to cash that check, you know. I was making big money for my first comic book. I go into Wells Fargo down here in the Mission, and they see rip-off press and see like $30,000 check.
I gotta call the manager.
28-something-year-old. You know, publish? Yeah, I want my money. And they would have to call and, you know, do all this back checking, and then they were like, wow, give them this money. You know, like, geez.
But you were saying that your entry into comics was through your dad, coloring your dad's work, right? So
Yep. So it started that way, and then for heavy metal, and then I met Archie Goodwin when I went to School of Visual Arts in 1981.
Mm-hmm.
I went to School of Visual Arts there in New York City, and I met Archie Goodwin of Marvel, and he was a good friend of my dad's. I was green, man. I was going in there like shaking and sweats.
But
and,
you are like,
and
you
I was
already,
like the big Marvel, you know, like.
but you already knew you wanted to pursue, like, this is your career, this is your calling to do.
I did.
Yeah.
And that was good.
Yeah.
And Archie saw that. And
Hell
he goes, well, let's start you right away. Let's, you know, like, can you do this and that and this and that with your dad's ink and color, you know, his pencils? And I was like, yeah, he's got a lot of untold stories. So I just started doing that, inking and coloring, and then eventually new stories, you know.
Yeah, it's crazy how it's like a full circle moment, like your relationship with your dad being so close, and then he passed when you were so young, but you have like picked up where he left off, and like you said, like you kept these characters, and you're also keeping part of him alive by still doing all these amazing things with these characters he created.
Well, you have to be strong, because son ofs and daughters of have to be confident.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave me that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I've done so many things that he never got to do, and vice versa, you know, like there's only one Vaughn and there's only one Mark, but we both meet together on this one, in this universe, you know, where, you know, he's immortal and I'm mortal, and we work together, and I keep it fresh, and he's legend, you know. So it's like the two of us,
Yeah,
together can work.
that's beautiful, man.
You know.
How did you end up working on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Well, Kevin Eastman was a big Bodē fan, and you can see it in the Ninja Turtles, the early Ninja Turtles, the first
Yeah,
book.
because most people associate with the cartoon show, but it was a comic book.
The comic
for a long
book, the
time
very
before
first
that.
comics, if you look up first Ninja Turtle comic book, those characters had these big three-toed feet, and they were very kind of anthropomorphic and heavy-footed. That all came from my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, there's a famous picture of Kevin packing up the first Turtle books with Peter Laird, and they're packing up comic books, and somebody took a photo, and he's wearing a Cheech Wizard shirt, and that was in '83, you know, when they first came out. So he's a big Bodē fan. He's in the documentary.
Cool.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So they got a hold of you through that, or
Well, we met at San Diego Comic-Con, and I was doing Miami Mice, and I was like, well, I kind of made, you know, like, I was kind of riding on the Turtles' coattails, you know, like, and making good bank, you know. So I was a little nervous, like I was like, you know, I was like, yeah, I'm making a few bucks off that, you know, off the Ninja Turtles too, but he was like, oh man, I'm such a big Bodē fan, and he like bought some original art right off the bat because he had some money from the Turtles books, and then I invited him to do a collab in Miami Mice #4. So him and Dave Sim, who did Cerebus, did a collab in #4, of Miami Mice, and then he goes, "Why don't you quit screwing around? Let's do a whole turtle issue together." So by number 18, they were already on 18 when I started, and we did Bruce Lee and the Ninja Turtles join up, because what could be better than Bruce Lee and the Ninja Turtles, you know? And that was, okay, let's have fun time, boys, you know? And it was just like, you know, it was nothing but fun.
And how many issues did you end up doing?
I did 2 of the original series, and then one special issue that was like where the turtles go to a Bodē planet.
Oh, nice.
Called Times Pipeline. That's a very rare book to find because it wasn't in the series of Mirage comics.
Yeah.
So number 18 and 32 I did, and those were very, you know, like 100,000 printed, you know, so those were very big print runs.
Mm-hmm.
But Times Pipeline's very hard to find. There was only like 20,000 made of that.
Dope.
Also the coolest one though. Something to look for if you get it.
No, hell yeah. Well, now I want to get into something that's really important for me and the viewers, and that's the connection to graffiti. Because I guess so, like the Lizards and the Wizard, they really got out there through Heavy Metal magazine, right? Which is like the science fiction magazine.
National Lampoon, I think.
National Lampoon, okay.
Yeah, National Lampoon was like 1 million print runs.
Okay.
And my dad was quickly becoming their biggest cartoonist. But, you know, that's that and Cavalier magazine, the wank magazines my dad worked for. You know, as Cavalier Dude and Swank and Screw, all those were like porno magazines. And my father did 4 pages a month for Cavalier, and that was amazing because they paid a page rate of $400 a page times 4 plus Cheech Wizard once a month. My dad was doing good money back then. Now there's no magazines to work for.
Right.
No one pays a page rate.
Right.
Heavy Metal pays $80 a page now.
Oof.
My dad would quit
Right.
over that kind of pay.
Yeah.
$80 a page for color.
That's crazy.
I did it during COVID just because I got, you know, self-employment compensation, and I just said, okay, I'm going to be a cartoonist and just have the government pay me to do comics.
Yeah.
So for two years, I did comics for $80 a page.
But so those magazines is where some of the early writers were seeing some of these cartoons,
Yep.
right?
So Ree and Chino Malo were the earliest recognized doing the Bodē character on a train. It was the first one that got photographed and documented. And that was 75, late 75, just after my dad passed.
And that's
So my dad never got to see that.
Wow, yeah.
And never met Dondi or any of the guys.
Yeah.
Like I did. I met them all. But and I got into, you know, I was a comic book artist straight up when I was in school of visual arts, and I wish I had met some of them, you know, like Dondi, like just meeting Dondi at that point, I would have been in there with Basquiat and Warhol and all, and Futura and the whole group. I would have totally been shoot in, but I was strictly comics at that time, just trying to follow in my dad's footsteps.
Oh, but you did get to meet.
But I did in
Dondi
85. I started getting, you know, I started noticing there was more than one person doing lizards and cheeches on the trains, and then, you know, the first time I saw Bodē characters on a train was on a nonstop on West 23rd. And yeah, it was West 23rd station, and I saw a train go by, and it had Deadbone and Bodē Broads and the Machines and Cheech Wizard, and it all went by like that, and I was like, holy fuck, who the hell is doing this? Is risking their freedom to paint my father's characters on the fucking trains. I thought it was one insane motherfucker, and I just left it at that. It turned out it was Mayer and Cal, probably, that team, the brothers. I explained it to him, and he said, I don't have any photos of that, Mark. I would love if we did, but a lot of times we just did it for the love of it, you know, and just to get up.
Yeah.
And so I never seen that train, but when I went back to San Francisco in 82, 83, I saw it above the Stud. You know, there was the Stud
Down there
nightclub.
on Folsom, yeah.
And there was a Bodē from Zooks. There was one of the Jets. And probably it could have been King, or it could have been one of those guys, or Fade, or there were some of the early writers, Shadow, and Thorn. There was a whole plethora of early writers that were doing Bodē characters, and that could have been any one of them. But I realized it was more than one at that point. So they're everywhere.
Wow.
And then it started, and then I embraced it myself. You know, I met Dondi. Dondi sought me out.
And you said before that Dondi was like probably helped really blow up the characters, because he did that full car. I think it's the Children of the Grave.
Yep.
With the
We owe him a lot. The last time I saw him, I didn't. When we first met, it was at my mother-in-law's bodega in Brooklyn, State and Third. And he knew that my mother-in-law had a bodega, so he kept going, when's Mark coming? When's Mark coming? He's coming for Christmas. Okay, I'll be back. You know, and finally we met. And he never said anything about graffiti. I was still a comic book guy. And he just was like, wanted to know stories. He wanted to know what it was like to be with my dad. And if he had said, you know, come spray paint with me in the yard, I would have said, oh, hell yeah. You know, I was like, just like in my early 20s. I was perfect for it. But he didn't. He was very humble. And he just wanted to touch base. We drew for each other, and that was it.
Wow.
And but years later, you know, last time I saw him was in the 90s. And I looked a lot different. I didn't have the long hair my father had, and I had white bleached hair, and I came up to him at the bar, Max Fish, and I said, my family owes you a lot, man. Like you are the pinnacle of, like, you started a whole new following for us, and I want to. He's like, yeah, whatever, man. And all of a sudden somebody came up to the bar, Bodē, you want a drink? And he was, oh, Bodē, Mark, Bodē. he was like, he didn't know who I was. He was like, oh, whatever, dude. Get off my shoulder. But the last time he didn't know who I was. I didn't know who he was when we met. Mm-hmm. And the last time we were together was, we experienced that. But yeah, eventually I got together with Revolt and Zephyr and Scene and all those guys, and Stan 153, who had turned out to be one of my closest friends. And he passed away not too long ago. But
crazy, man. Yeah, because you end up basically, like, these graffiti legends start embracing yours and your father's artwork, and then you started embracing graffiti too, because you eventually picked up the spray paint as well.
Yeah, well, I did the same thing in tattooing. Like, so many people were tattooing Bodē characters, and it always kind of irked me. Like, well, I should be making money like that too. You know, like, why am I not making money doing that? You know, like, I'm the guy. You know, I'm the well. You know, and so each time, like I'd get my ass kicked by these guys who could just spray, like do Bodē characters like no problem, and I was like still struggling with can pressure, and I ended up in spray can art just out of luck, because that piece I did was the first piece I ever spray painted. That there was 2 doors, and it was like a bust of a woman, and if you look up above, my name is all janky. It's because I had no spray control.
Right.
I had none.
Right.
I was just like other people were like, "Hey, can you fix my shit, man?" and it's but Jim Prigoff came and said, "I want to picture you in front of that," and it was just because of my background that photo was taken. But I still have the doors.
Wow.
My friend saved them, and he had them in the warehouse and the piano warehouse over in Pine Street in Oakland, and he saved Steve Heck. He saved the doors, so and I still have them. They're the only thing existing from spray can art.
Wow.
The only thing.
Well, you done like a lot of like murals and stuff. Did you ever get into bombing?
I did, but it never went much further than tagging in bathrooms and on once in a while.
You were hitting like Bodē tags
in New York City. Yeah, and then people go, whatever. Yeah, right. Arrows. Yeah, but I tagged a few freighters. Like just small like burner type. Because I at that point I was older. I was like in my 30s.
Yeah.
If I had to run from the police, I'd probably, if they handcuffed me, I'd start crying. It was just too late for me.
Right. But you've linked with some of the best writers out there. Especially here in the Bay, and I feel like the Bay Area graffiti scene has like hella embraced you. Either people doing your characters, paying homage, or you actually painting with people. Who are some of the writers out here that you've had a chance to work with?
Well, King. I've been around King for quite a while. He does a lot of lizards and broads and stuff, and we have a mutual respect, and he does one of a kinds, and let's see, Cuba.
Rest in peace,
Cuba got me going.
Yes.
Cuba, when I first moved out here again in 2015, after moving back to Massachusetts for the Ninja Turtles for 13 years, I moved back in 2005, and Cuba was the one getting me walls, and he's like, "Bodē, come out, paint, man, come out," and every week he was like, "Come out again," and like I got good real quick, because I was, Cuba was he was driven, man, like finding everywhere he went, he was looking at walls. He didn't see streets and buildings, he saw walls, wherever he was. So he rubbed off a lot on me, and then I met just all kinds of other Dino, and people came off of Cuba, I painted with the best now, like all over the world. I'm real lucky. Like I'm doing a collab with Scene next month. We're doing a series of canvases, Bodē and Scene canvases. And he doesn't do that. The only other person he's done that with is Quick, his good buddy. So I get to paint with some really, really great people. And Os Gemos.
Right.
We did the big 5-story building, or is it 7 stories? I forget. But a big, it's still there on the back of the Warfield Theater. You can see it, but you can't take a photo of it because it's in an alleyway now. They built a hotel in front of it, but it's still there. But Os Gemos are really good friends, and we're planning on doing collaborations. So really, it's very lucky to have had the life and multiple, like in tattooing, like, I was lucky there too. My first tattoo convention, the guy who ran the convention, guy Animal in Pittsburgh, he's an angel, Hell's Angel, and he heard that I was green. I'd only been tattooing a few months, and he's like, "You're tattooing me," like he was the guy running the convention. I was nervous as hell, like, oh my God, doing this guy. He went, "I want Cheech Wizard and fucking Broad, man. You got to do it." And so I was thrown right into the pit so quickly, but always because of the name and my father, and going forth, into new territories, with the characters,
Yeah, it's amazing. So now flash forward, we got graffiti, we got murals, we still got comic books, we got animation, we got toys, we
Tattoos.
got sculptures. I mean, you've salute, man. You've really done a great job of pushing things forward.
Oh, thank you. It's all, it's just love, done out of love, and respect, and keeping the wizard and the lizard alive,
Straight up. Well,
me and my dad.
I can't wait to see what you bring to the event.
Oh, yeah.
October 19th.
Yeah, we're gonna have some of these. These are some of the things I'll be bringing, to the event, and I even have some of my dad's stuff. I don't know if this comes out on the camera that good, but you could probably just like edit that stuff in. But I will also have the Ninja Turtle books from the original Turtles when they all have the same headbands. I'll have a stack of those. I'll be selling those. I'll have poem tunes from my dad's, some of my dad's art, and some of his comics with me too. So if you can't afford original art, maybe you can afford, some of the comics or some of the posters or the blotter art or whatever.
Amazing. I cannot wait. And King's going to be there too.
Yeah,
also breaking down the commissions. Together. Y'all probably going to do a collab.
Oh, yeah, that'd be nice.
For those who can't make it though, what else can they do to support you and get their hands on some of your work?
Oh, well, it's pretty much Instagram, a lot of, Mark Bodē Official, Vaughn Bodē Official, Cheech Wizard Official, and Cobalt 60 Official. Those are all my Instagrams.
Okay.
But Mark Bodē Official is really where, when I drop stuff, that's where it drops. And has the biggest following because I just worked it harder,
Okay. We'll put the links up and make sure people can get in touch with you.
Sure. And I look forward to the history of the Bay.
History of the Bay Day.
Yeah,
with
man.
Mark
Bodē,
man. It's a Bay
history
thing.
of the Bay with Bodē.
So we're going to see you there, man. Thank you so much. Shout out to Dying Breed for putting this all together. And make sure you come check them out. Support them as well. They got some Bodē artwork up in here. They got some spray paint, markers, dope-ass gear. So make sure you support. Shout out to Cheech Wizard. Shout out to the Bodē Broads in real life and in cartoon land. And thank you, Mark.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate you.
Peace.
History of the Bay, Dregs One. We out of here, y'all. Peace.
Recognize where you got the game. We got our own style, got our own slang. Northern California is a West Coast thing. This is the history of the Bay. Recognize where you got the game. We got our own style, got our own slang. Northern California is a West Coast thing. This is the history of the Bay.